The Rock, the biggest movie star in the world, is also one of the biggest TV stars with the Young Rock, a show about his rise to stardom. But the other man you see there pictured on screen is Roman Reigns, currently the biggest star in professional wrestling in the WWE. So, what is that little kid over their shoulder? Well, that is a childhood depiction of young Joe Anoa'i, a young nephew of The Rock. And last night, in a scene on the show, they foreshadow a match down the line between the two. And it is a significant one. And it is quite a tease that makes you think if they're going to tease that on a network TV show separate from WWE that has direct association with all of WWE lore, that we're getting that, right? We're getting that. We have a lot to talk about here on today's Sportskeeda Wrestling top story of the day. Brock Lesnar. What is his immediate future with the WWE? Plus, we'll get into even more with Ricochet, the reigning defending Intercontinental Champion, has a lot to say about the current status of that championship. Becky Lynch being named a game changer, not game changer wrestling. Slow down. Why was people just rushing to conclusions? Gallows and Anderson, the Good Brothers, what is their contract status with Impact Wrestling moving forward? And so much more. Let's get right into it. You share that link, or you stink.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
Beloit, Wisconsin in the house. What's going on, everybody? My alarms are going off already as the show starts. There we go. Jeremy Bennet in Nebraska, if you ask. You holding the
We
fence
didn't do
up.
our iconic open.
I know, because we got interrupted by an alarm. Here we go. Watch out.
Watch out.
Watch out. You just do the quick one at the end. There you go. We have a lot to get into. If you're with us live for the first time, go ahead and shout out where you were watching from. A lot of news. Let's get right into it. The Rock last night. Young Rock. We're in season 2 of this show, which is kind of like a dramedy, more of a comedy depiction of The Rock's life at various different stages of his youth, coming up in the wrestling ranks in football. Most of the first season was almost all about football. They had wrestling, but it was all his father, Rocky Johnson. And the show has a lot of hints towards things that come up later in Rock's life, like his movie career and obviously his WWE career. But the last 2 episodes really settled into, and I watched them today, literally right up until we went live, settle into him getting into wrestling, and that setbacks in his football career set up to follow up the family business. His father, Rocky Johnson, Hall of Famer, one half of the first African-American WWE Tag Team Champions, and his grandfather, High Chief Peter Maivia, one of the greatest territory champions of all time, and a WWE Hall of Famer in his own right. So this is interesting here. The way this all plays out here in the scene, as I was mentioning, they have Rock getting ready to jump into the wrestling business, watching a pay-per-view with the entire Samoan dynasty in the living room, and this little kid scrapping around his shoulder, putting him in a headlock, saying, I want to wrestle. And he goes, that match isn't, the world isn't ready for that match. That's one that can only happen at WrestleMania.
Yes.
So you have literally put an Easter egg into a network TV show for a match that hasn't happened yet.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
I'm not saying it's a confirmation, but if ever there has been a bigger move to tease this, even bigger than a tweet, even bigger than Roman talking about it, or even The Rock talking about it, I think this would be it, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, it was kind of funny how he even yelled, "Acknowledge me," as a little kid there.
It was cute.
That was pretty funny. As they're starting to obviously focus on him starting to train for a professional wrestling gig. Where he told his father he doesn't want his father to train him and things like that. So it's the very beginnings since his football career didn't take off. So it's kind of a unique and interesting and funny nod to those who follow professional wrestling and knew what that meant.
Absolutely. And I think, this is the second season of Young Rock. It's a very well-produced show, very well written, a lot of comedy, a lot of stuff.
Could be funnier. It could be funnier.
It could be funnier, but it's cute. It's campy. Yeah. It's very network driven to the family. So people that have followed the career of The Rock will get a little bit of an insight, and you almost feel like you know him a little bit better. But some of these stories may be fictionalized. I don't know. But last night's episode, which I still haven't watched, I only saw that snippet that's been everywhere right now. That was very cool. Very cool that he's like, oh, you see that? That's my cousin Joe. And then it's a freeze frame, and then it puts all of his acknowledgement. he'd become a future WWE champion, Universal champion, the biggest wrestler of his time. So the fact that he took the time to, and this was pre-filmed, this was done late last year, right? So this was all done in pre-production for the season back then, when we were still hyping and possibly thinking that The Rock will show up in Dallas. But now we have this little wink wink that we're listening to you guys. And the message couldn't be any clearer.
It's a mainstream move. This is a mainstream match. This isn't just any personality you're getting in wrestling. This is you getting the biggest personality that has ever transcended wrestling. There's no debate about this. Hulk Hogan made wrestling a big thing in the 80s. Austin did it with The Rock in the 90s. But The Rock is the biggest star that has ever come out of wrestling and gone and done something else. You could say Donald Trump became a president, but I mean, he came into wrestling and made some money. It's The Rock. It's The Rock, right? He's the biggest name that ever came out of it. He's a very calculated guy. He's very much in bed with WWE in the XFL business. He bought a majority stake from them. He'll launch that this year as well. This guy has his fingers in a lot of different pools. When does the XFL launch on television? That's in the spring of 2023. What is also in the spring of 2023? The XFL. Now, the thing is, the match isn't official yet. You need to give Rock a big window away from a bunch of different insurances that are tied to different deals that he has with productions, away from all those different things. You know, there was talk this year at WrestleMania that we weren't going to get a Brock match, that we were a Brock Reigns match, and we were going to get The Rock in the ring at some point there. There was some angle. We were people talking about that every 5 minutes when we were in Dallas. And that was a highly protected thing, and there was no one talking about that. We knew we were getting Stone Cold months in advance, but they were saying, where are we going to get Rock, though, to lay up next year's WrestleMania in Los Angeles? And it seems like even Reigns has hinted at that if the match would happen, it wouldn't happen in Dallas, that it would happen in Los Angeles, where The Rock is a huge movie star, where The Rock is a resident, where The Rock is a force of nature in entertainment. It makes all sense for The Rock to do this with Reigns in Los Angeles next spring.
Yeah.
Oh, it absolutely does.
So it'd be certainly interesting here. A lot of people saying Roman Reigns deserves it. Now be the biggest WrestleMania match of all time. Nothing bigger than that family war. Yeah, it's certainly like if you just have that one match, it's going to move a lot of tickets, move a lot of people. If someone likes The Rock and they want to subscribe to Peacock on a whim, this is a huge match to do it. If they're just a WrestleMania fan, I know a lot of people are. They just tune in for the big shows. This is one of those mega big matches, right? But can you keep Reigns this consistently hot until then? Can you keep the fire burning that long? It's pretty hard when you have an episodic TV show that doesn't shut down 52 weeks of the year. Or do you need the title to do it? Can you take the title off of him and heat him back up again for WrestleMania?
Yeah, this doesn't need the title. Plus, this is probably The Rock's last match, so...
I think maybe that's a good point, that it doesn't need a title. The title makes it nice because it gives us something to fight for. But at the end of the day, The Rock's not going to stick around for a championship run, right? So even if someone else, let's say Cody Rhodes is the WWE Universal Champion at that point, even you could still close out WrestleMania 39 Roman Reigns versus The Rock because it's those two names.
Johnny Manziel saying I couldn't imagine them going against each other. Ozzy retorts with, it doesn't matter what you think. All right, so so a lot of different takes there. Let's get into this news here about Brock Lesnar. There was some talk of him having some role on WrestleMania Backlash, and now that's not the case. What's the latest here?
According to the official website and for the arena and whatnot, the poster showed Lesnar on there for WrestleMania Backlash, but now the updated poster has removed Lesnar. Of course, Lesnar has not been on TV since, and a lot of people are speculating he is just taking a hiatus. He's probably, like I've said on Twitter, he's probably had enough with people. He's going to go hide in his farm for a little while.
He needs to hibernate take a little hiatus from people.
Yeah, get away from people for a while and hibernate up north for some time.
Doesn't that sound like the most Brock Lesnar thing? Just going and hiding away from people.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I don't think there was expectations that he was going to be on the card. I don't think there were a lot of talk around Mania speculated that he was going to take a break anyway. So I don't know why they, of course, those posters, those things are put together months in advance. So, so clearly it was a little outdated. Then they updated it with they've added Cody Rhodes onto it. So, so it wasn't expected that he was going to be there in May. Probably going to be out until closer to SummerSlam, I'm guessing.
It's certainly an interesting situation. I think Brock Lesnar will be back in the mix before SummerSlam. This is the loop with him. He did a lot of stuff since he came back to WWE in August. That was for a guy who's a quote unquote featured player, right? That was a big run from August to now. And relatively, there's some guys who just kind of get iced that way anyway, but especially when you're at the main event level and all those different things, you get the perks and you're Brock Lesnar. You're not just another guy.
Should be noted, Kevin, that we saw more of Brock Lesnar between August and this WrestleMania than we did during his last Universal title run when that lasted almost 2 years.
True, and made for a better show. I mean, there are only a handful of SmackDowns that he appeared on where he didn't do something eventful or entertaining, and you had a motivated Brock. I would say this is a Brock who lost at WrestleMania, but definitely seemed motivated in the run, wanted to play ball, did things that WWE asked him to do, put on the cowboy hat, wrecked some things, and did it with a smile on his face.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think this was a complete different reiteration of Brock. And I think there was a little bit of a delay, so I apologize for the silence.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, you're good. But I think this version of Brock, you could see that he was completely committed to what he was doing, as opposed to a few years ago when he had that Universal title run, where he didn't want to be there. Like it was his body language said it, his facial expression said it. Now he could be working and just keep staying in character, but even in some of the backstage stuff that you've seen in the documentaries, like WWE 24, where he throws the Universal title at Vince McMahon after he's done with the title or after he's done with the match. So this is his mindset is at a different place now. And that's good for him and it's good for us.
Yeah. And probably, maybe he needs a break though, so he doesn't get back to that state, again, and wants to keep that energy and the persona up. And so being at that grind for too long, this is one of his longest runs since he's come back in 2014. So, to keep that positive energy, he probably does need to have a couple months off and then come back in time for whatever is next step for him.
It's interesting here. And obviously, I don't think it's a huge story, but we're getting Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins in this Backlash pay-per-view. That was one of the biggest matches at WrestleMania. And in terms of doing an immediate rematch at the next pay-per-view, which tends to be the rhythm for a lot of WWE shows, I think this is one that people wanted. The reaction to it was pretty positive on Monday. So it's not like Backlash doesn't have something you want to see. I think people enjoyed seeing Cody versus Seth as a surprise we expected, but a surprise that got confirmed. Now you get match 2. You have 2 of the best wrestlers in the world in big match scenarios. Yeah. And you're going to get something unique here. So I don't think it's all bad. And
Rick and I talked about this on today's show, on today's Believe in Pro Wrestling podcast. I think the Usos and RK Bro closed the show, to be honest.
Oh, that's an interesting call there.
That is a very interesting call. You're talking about the unification of the titles at Backlash. I think that makes sense.
Be interesting to see Roman kind of play like a ringside character if he's involved in that pay-per-view. Ricochet, he didn't have a huge presence at WrestleMania, though. He was a part of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal featured on Friday before SmackDown. Didn't get a spotlight on those 2 big nights in Cowboy Stadium. Ricochet comments on the current status of the Intercontinental Championship today on the bump. What do we have, gentlemen?
He had mentioned about saying he was thankful that WWE gave him time to spend with his son, and then mentioned about that he does not want to miss another premium live event, especially a WrestleMania. He says WrestleMania is always an electricity in the showcase of the immortals. It's something you want to do beyond. WrestleMania is the top of the mountain. If I wasn't going to be on it, I was so glad to be able to spend time with my son and recharge my physical and mental battery and family battery. I'm glad I was able to do that. As much as WrestleMania is an event, it's a feeling, it's an emotion. That's my goal for next year, is to make sure the Intercontinental title and myself collectively together make it to WrestleMania and make it on WrestleMania. and that this title, I want to make it as famous as possible to where it cannot miss another one. This title cannot miss another premium live event. It's not going to miss Backlash. It's not going to miss Money in the Bank. WrestleMania is the showcase of the immortals, and Ricochet plans on being immortal.
Interesting comments there. This is the time of year where WWE kind of introduces some new characters, maybe even pulls some up. It is said, the format we expect and we follow is new guys get call ups after WrestleMania. We've already gotten a couple, right? Mm-hmm. And we've seen some NXT talent featured on Monday at Raw, even though they're on NXT, just to give them the rub. We saw an NXT title change this past week on Raw. What's to say on SmackDown? They don't say, like, all right, let's start going with the Intercontinental Champion. If we're going to have less Roman Reigns, we got to have more banger matches on a show that's on network television that's the most watched wrestling show. So Ricochet's been doing that a little bit more recently in the lead up to WrestleMania. Oddly enough, that he wasn't featured on a match at WrestleMania. He was featured in a lot of television leading up to WrestleMania, which is worth noting. So that's the odd omission. He was one of those big omissions from WrestleMania. Balor, the same idea. He was featured significantly. Won a title, the United States Championship on Raw, but did somehow make it into the show. I do think this is WWE saying, hey, we have something else beyond WrestleMania. We have characters we want to highlight and spotlight and just reinvigorate their fan base. I would hope that's the case here with Ricochet, right?
Yeah, but I mean, WWE also sends a message by leaving both titles off of a 2-night event where you have literally 12 hours of coverage. You had 2 hours.
Couldn't get them on the show. We couldn't do anything.
We couldn't do that battle. It's absolutely
it's beyond. It's a travesty.
Yeah, the kickoff shows not having a battle royal on it made no sense.
The fact that there was nothing on 4 hours of kickoff shows is ridiculous. The fact that you have 8 hours of main card and you do not have either title on it is ridiculous. I mean, it would have been ridiculous to put them on the pre-show as is. You didn't even have anything on those things. And, you had so much programming and still couldn't find time for it. It was pretty ridiculous.
Now, what they've done with both titles, man, is an absolute travesty, both with the United States title and the Intercontinental title. Right now, we've seen 3 weeks in a row where Finn Balor has eaten the L as being the U.S. champion, which is absurd to me why he's taking all these L's. Then you have Ricochet, who is a phenomenal athlete and can put on banger matches. We've seen this time and time again, and yet he's not being featured on the most important show of the year. And just like you said, it was just 4 hours of kickoff shows wasted without having those titles or any of those being featured on that. So, man, it's just an absolute travesty what's happened. And hopefully he can do something with it. Let's see if it actually gets featured on a PLE this time. Let's see if it gets featured on Backlash.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. You got to build someone up. And they're certainly doing some new challengers or newer challengers for some titles. I think they should maybe feature some newer champions that are in the high profile situation. They've done the hot and cold thing with the women's titles. I don't think they should be hot and cold with the IC belt, but it's where you are. I mean, so much of the show is focused on the big names, and that has been a winning formula for WWE. I know some fans would like them to change that, but why change what's already working for them? This year's WrestleMania was pretty successful. As much as I would like to see a Balor and a Ricochet on the show, all right, more focus on the big names has been a successful model recently. So I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. Is that fair to say? I don't like it, but I get it.
Yeah. So we got what you say is absolutely right.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but it is what it is, So, game changer. That's a phrase that's used a lot in wrestling here with Game Changer Wrestling. But now, someone in the WWE has earned the title of one of the most influential game changers in the 21st century. How did Becky Lynch get this award here?
Glazia magazine has honored Lynch for her accomplishments, naming her as a top female game changer in the 21st century. Of course, this is not inclusive to wrestlers. This is inclusive to all women around the world, as they include Kamala Harris, Michelle Obama, Greta Thunberg, and a lot others. From the magazine itself, they said Becky Lynch is an Irish professional wrestler, also the first woman to win WrestleMania's first ever all-female event. In 2019, Lynch became the first woman to hold SmackDown's Women's Championship and Raw's Women's Championship simultaneously. Lynch would go on to be a 4-time SmackDown Women's Champion. Lynch also stands for equalism and women empowerment in every sector. With women empowerment and women coming together, it's not about being better than the guys or whatever. It's about collaborate. It's not just about collaboration. It's about being equal and having more of a highlight on women's athletics and just women being equal in every aspect, which with the rise of the Four Horsewomen obviously has brought women's wrestling to the forefront. It literally kicked it out of the Divas stage and has main evented several things and has led to its own Royal Rumble match, which was never a thing for so long. It led to a WrestleMania main event. So, it's definitely a commendable achievement for Becky Lynch.
For sure. I mean, go ahead, Jose, jump in there.
This is actually very, very interesting because I'm here listening to the news and reading it and just kind of digesting what this one source, this one magazine, this one news outlet decided on who is, the most influential female game changers of the 21st century. You got to believe that Charlotte Flair's got to be biting her teeth with this. You got to believe that, that Sasha or even because those 4 women, they all kind of came up at the same time, right? So I understand that like Becky Lynch won the big one at WrestleMania, and that's a monumental thing to do. But you can't discard the other women that helped her get to that position, right?
Yeah, and I don't think it's all in the ring though. A lot of it, they also mention a lot of things that Becky does outside of the ring, and that might be things that Charlotte, Sasha, and Bayley don't do. So
true, very true.
Certainly interesting, and certainly something that another chip on her shoulder that she can brag about and say that she's the man and all those different things. Let's get into this story. The Good Brothers, they were signed in late 2019 to a very lucrative standing deal with WWE that would keep them in the fold, and they would have had the opportunity to jump and join their buddies over in All Elite Wrestling or maybe even Impact or head back to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Some big things outside of WWE. They sign new deals with WWE. Then they get cut in the first waves of big cuts during the pandemic and the spring of 2020. How unfortunate, even though they played a role in the Boneyard match as kind of being seconds there to AJ Styles. That would be the Undertaker's final match. They've been with Impact Wrestling ever since, but obviously have worked significant roles on All Elite Wrestling, television wrestling many times there. They've also recently wrestled on New Japan Strong Dates, partnership officially between New Japan and Impact is still active. Their deal is up soon, and what's going to happen with them? These are 2 still significant players in the business. Are they as significant as they once were? What is their free market value? Would WWE want them back now? Would they go back to WWE? I don't know, but I'm of the thought that something makes me think they stay within one of those 3 non-WWE companies, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, their deal was a 2-year deal with Impact, and I mean them along with Brian Myers, Heath. They really added some much-needed juice to Impact, and the product had gotten a lot better because of it. And those deals are 2-year deals that are now going to be ending on July 17th of this year, so just 3 months from now. And so I don't know. I think my gut feeling is they go to AEW just because of who's there. A lot of people they associate with are in AEW. They had a big run in AEW with Don Callis and Kenny Omega. They have a big presence on BTE. I just feel like they don't. Outside of it depends. If they continue to have a strong presence of New Japan in Impact Wrestling, I could see them re-signing. But they outside of the New Japan factor and the Bullet Club factor, they don't fit in as much into Impact where they would in AEW, I think. So it's going to be interesting to see where they land.
It'll be interesting to see where they land. I mean, obviously the Impact AEW thing kind of ran its course, right? And now you're at this crossroads. What do you think, Jose? Where should these guys end up? Our 2 bald-headed, bearded buddies here.
These guys are hilarious, by the way, in person. Yeah, these guys are the most chill people I've ever had the pleasure to talk to. I don't know, man. Impact is such a good fit for them. AEW really doesn't need them. I wouldn't mind seeing them doing a run. Maybe they could do something with Ring of Honor under Tony Khan with Ring of Honor. I don't know where you really just fit them right now, just because there's such an influx of free agents in the market right now. Where are the Good Brothers going to be more valuable? That's where I'm trying to think right now. So if I'm a promoter,
well,
who do I want?
The interesting part is Kenny Omega is going to be coming back close to when their deal is up. And they were very closely associated with Omega and Don Callis during Omega's title run. So that makes me think that it's a very strong possibility that they could go to AEW and return with Omega. And then you got Adam Cole with Red Dragon. You got what I think is the Bucks eventually turning face and aligning with Hangman Page. And you got the Good Brothers and Kenny Omega, and you have 3 sets of 3 that can fight over the World Championship and the Tag Team Championships in a pretty epic battle of 3 factions right there. So I really think...
Jeremy, fantasy booking isn't news. It's just speculation. I understand what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, but I also
the buzzkill has been buzzkilled.
But I also...
it happened. You just been buzzed.
But I also use it as facts to back it up.
I know.
The fact that Kenny Omega is close to coming back is fact enough that this could really set up because they're really kind of teasing a Hangman Bucks thing, and I won't be surprised if Adam Cole takes that title on Friday either. So and I'm definitely thinking Red Dragon wins tonight. So, that's a good kind of a 3-way faction feud that you could have when Kenny comes back. And
it's a nice way to drag things out if you want to. I mean, this isn't like a critique. AEW likes to do some things that push a storyline. All right, now, because they introduced this element, now it's going to have to go.
That's their formula that works for them.
Yep.
It's going to have to go farther because they don't have the pay-per-view payoff.
Plus, right? I mean, if you set up a feud like this, man, eventually you're going to have them trios championships too. Imagine a triple threat trios. Imagine a triple threat trios title match with those 9 guys.
You have a lot of variations. You have a lot of variations you can play with there. So for sure, that's
and Kenny Omega. Some news on another front that he works on too today.
Yes, we have news about the.
Go ahead and drop that news, man.
Very video game, man.
Very surprising news came out from Fightful Select today about the AEW video game, where it is going to be coming out closer than you think. Nobody had any idea when it was going to come out. There'd never been a set date, never been an estimated date until now. And that date is now tentatively only 5 months away this September. Wow. They are looking to ship late September for the new AEW video game. They're told there's plenty of work to be done then, and the plan has been long for the game to release this year, and that September has been widely regarded as the target as of now. Of course, things can change during the development cycle. If you get a hiccup, something along the development cycle, something along the lines of the certification cycle with Microsoft and Sony, you could always get some delays there. But the date they're looking at now is into September, which I did not expect at all.
Certainly intriguing. That's a quick turnaround, because then you got to market the hell out of this thing under that time period. Yeah. And as much as wrestling fans who watch television all week will get really tired of hearing the same thing promoted to them every week, it's not for you. This is the first real test of All Elite Wrestling putting out a product.
Well, look how much
can transcend a weekly television show.
Look how much WWE pimps their video games. So
sure, and there's a reason they do it, because it sells games. It gets people to pay attention, and it gets people that are casual to pay attention.
And it's like they're sponsor of their pay-per-view, which is kind of funny that their own game sponsors their premium live event.
Sure. Imagine.
Are you mad about that, bigger. Jeremy? Premium live.
I will call it a pay-per-view till I effing die.
Guys, before we head out here, we got to get Roland Curtis's super chat in. As always, showing us the love and showing us the support.
Thank you so much,
Roland Curtis says, yes, championship titles are unnecessary, but I disagree about the titles, because Rock versus Roman needs one title on the line. Tribal Chief, also known as head of the table.
That is the title that matters, Roland. That is the title
the story.
that matters.
There's the story. Who's the head of the family? Who's the top star in the family? Who is the
Roman
tribal
ain't
chief?
holding that title all the way to Mania. He's gonna drop it this year sometime, probably to Cody.
Mm-hmm. And will The Rock play a role in that?
That would be interesting, but I don't know. Right now, I have it as Cody wins Money in the Bank, which then enables him. Well, I don't know. Again, the WWE title thing is so weird because there was always the rumor that they were going to create a brand new title for Raw. Now I don't know because you still have the two separate titles. They didn't really unify them, so
you just have one guy holding. You just have one guy.
So you may not have to have Cody win Money in the Bank now to challenge Roman. So I don't know. I would say he wins Money in the Bank, calls his shot, challenges him at SummerSlam to close the show. He doesn't do the surprise thing. He actually challenges Roman ahead of time. But I don't know now because, I mean, we still don't have any clarification on what they're doing with those titles. I don't think they truly unified them now the way they're still presenting them on TV.
People pumped for tonight's AEW Dynamite. This is a stacked episode. Boy. Samoa Joe will have his AEW television debut after joining the company. He will take on Ring of Honor television champion. This is a surprising move that they pulled here by doing this with Japanese wrestling legend, New Japan Pro legend Minoru Suzuki holding that title.
They're going to beat the dog shit out of each other.
And I hope they get a lot of time. You have a real legendary figure there and a lot more hype leading into Rampage this week. AEW trying to, I think, ride that post-Mania wave.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. You don't know.
Play.
You don't know if Suzuki's sticking around or if he is sticking around. You could, there's two ways to see that. If Suzuki's not sticking around, you easily put it on Joe. Or is Lethal going to screw Joe? It can go either way. So it's very interesting to see what's going to happen tonight.
Of course, definitely check out all the action there. We'll have it covered at sportskeeda.com. If you haven't done so, go ahead and subscribe to our channels. We have two channels here on YouTube. We're over 28,000. Thank you so much on YouTube right now. We're making that march towards 29. Subscribe to our other channel, Wrestle Binge by Sportskeeda. This is a channel that is exclusively just countdowns and a little bit more topic-specific type videos. But mostly countdowns. You hear Jeremy, you'll hear me on there, you'll hear Jose. A lot of fun stuff we're doing on that. Go ahead and give it a look. Just search Wrestle Binge, two separate words, Sportskeeda. That'll pop up in YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe. Thank you to the people that subscribe to the podcast version of everything we're putting out. The audio is just kicking ass. Number 1 this past week in Ireland. Number 2 in Pakistan. On the top 10 in India. In the top 100 in the United States, Canada, Australia, and Great Britain. Thank you guys so much. We really
acknowledge us.
If you are listening over there, by the way, and you've been listening this long, go ahead and give us a 5-star review. Go ahead and give us a 5-star review. We may be playing with some live audio streaming things, not just live video streaming, but live audio streaming. So keep an eye out for that as well. Yes, acknowledge Sportskeeda in the chat. I appreciate that. You can follow at Jose_G_official. You can follow me at Kev Kellam. I'll be live on stage Thursday night at the Reveler in Chicago, Friday night at Kedzie Inn. All my comedy dates up at my Twitter, at Kev Kellam. Jeremy Bennet, keep him busy with Believe in Pro Wrestling, covering NXT over there as well. Give him a follow at JB Huskers. And follow Sportskeeda. Follow Sportskeeda on all the different things you have on your screen. We're on all those things. Go ahead and look for that SK logo. We'll be up there. Remember, when watching wrestling, do the most important thing, which is what?
You need to enjoy wrestling and acknowledge us.
Yeah!
Watch out, watch out!